Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all are having a wonderful week so far. In today's video, we're going to continue on doing a futures volatility box recap. We've seen a good amount of volatility so far this week. Expect this to continue headed into the election. And so far, our scalper volatility box along with the aggressive volatility box have been fairly useful to try and catch some of these reversals. Now, in today's video, I'll start by sharing the note that I sent to all of our members this morning. So using that, we really detail which volatility box we should be using. This is sent today at 7:25 a.m. Pacific. So on the S&P and the Dow, we were using our aggressive volatility box, which is one layer up from our most aggressive one, which is the scalper. So we knew that the volatility there was a little bit higher than usual, and that's where we were using the aggressive volatility box for the S&P and the Dow. Then for the Nasdaq was on the scalper, but with an active test. So we were checking to see if we hit 11,724 first or 11,800, and then based on that, we then know which volatility box we should be using. And then the Russell was via our scalper volatility box. Then outside of that, the other markets we look at, so the bonds were on the aggressive volatility box. Then crude, copper, and natural gas also on the aggressive, with crude being observed on the scalper. And then gold and silver also on the aggressive volatility box, also being observed on the scalper. Now we come in here, let's start by using this as our basis. So we'll come into the S&P here, starting with our aggressive volatility box. You should notice that in the first hour, we held our aggressive volatility box cyan lines, which is why we're using the aggressive volatility box, looking for a breach of either side cyan lines as the day progresses. Now that entry came in that 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific hour, when we had price action really almost across the board start to fall. This is where most of our entries came for today. So when that falls, that's our opportunity to try and buy this dip if our rules are met. Now the rules are we need a breach of our volatility box cyan line. Once that happens, we need an edge signal. Once that edge signal comes, for our least futures, we'd like an entry at our cyan line or better, and you can start to scale in using SPY options anytime we're in between this zone for those of you looking to be a bit more aggressive. Now in today's case, we did get that pullback to the cyan line. At this moment, we're filled. We had a little bit of heat on this trade coming all the way down to our clouds. Our stop is outside of the volatility box to give you an idea of what that stop looks like in the S&P. That stop on the S&P was a little bit more than 9 points. Looking for that same 9 points on the target side. So that was our first target. Second target is at the gray target line, which was 15 points away on the S&P. And so that was a nice winner of a positive 24 points across both T1 and T2 in the S&P futures. And that was it. That was the only trade for today. But this really allowed you to buy the dip and catch a pretty nice reversal in the S&P futures. Now, if we switch over to the Dow, where we were also on our aggressive volatility box, same thing, right? So in the morning, we held our cyan entry line. You can see that above as well, right? Stayed inside of our cyan entry line. And now we're looking for an opportunity to really either fade either side's edges, whether it's a short or a long. Now, in both the S&P and the Dow, we had breached our short opportunity as well, but we never got the edge signal in time, right? That's this overbought, oversold indicator before we went hitting both the T1 and T2. For those of you that caught that move, that was definitely a much more aggressive move, but the only one that met our rules was the long opportunity in which we had price action breach our volatility box cyan line, this time for a long entry. So we had both short and long triggered in the same hour. Then we had our edge signal confirmation come a little bit towards the latter half of the hour. And then once we had that, we had an opportunity to enter at the cyan line or better, really even an opportunity to enter at the clouds for those of you that wait for the more aggressive entry, but the cyan line is where we look for the entry. Now from that point, our trade was a go. Our stop is again outside of the volatility box to give you an idea of what that looks like. That was right around 80 points, 81 points on the Dow. And then our second target was 112 points. Again, both of which were hit. Once we hit our T1, which is in this spike up higher right here, our stop is moved to break even, looking to see if we got our T2, which at that point was fairly close to T1. And so that was a nice winner as well. And so on the Dow, that was a total gain of 192 points across both the T1 and T2, which was a positive 960. Now let's contrast this with the Nasdaq, which was a loser today, in which we were trying to be a bit more aggressive. And you can notice that yesterday the Nasdaq was our winner, today the Nasdaq was the loser. So there's no real set formula here. It's really just following the rules in each market and taking what the trade results give you. Now in the Nasdaq, we started off with our scalper volatility box. That's our most aggressive volatility box here. And very similarly to that same 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific hour, we saw our short breach, which in real time that short was breached right here. This is where the clouds were. We breached that. We ended up going to T1 and T2 before getting an opportunity to enter. At this point, we're looking for our long entry, which we breached our long cyan volatility box entry lines right here. got our edge signal confirmation, and we this was our fill, got an opportunity to enter, and then we ended up going outside of the clouds right here. You'll notice that in this wick, which this is oddly similar to the S&P trade yesterday, in which we were stopped out. This time for a little bit more than just a wick, but still it was a fairly marginal move outside of the volatility box clouds before we saw a reversal higher. So that's where I think just being a bit more aggressive and using the scalper today on the Nasdaq was not the right move. Instead, if we switch over to the aggressive, which is what we had once we stopped outside of the clouds, you'll notice the aggressive did a much better job of containing price action here while respecting our cyan entry lines. Now, the last market that we'll talk about to conclude the four major indices one more time is the Russell. Now, using the Russell here, if we start off, we were on our scalper volatility box, very similar, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific. We again had our short opportunity, which real time we were looking at just the wicks. Never got that edge signal in time before we saw a pretty sharp reversal almost right away. So in all four markets, it was the long that really gave us an opportunity to try and at least catch the move. Then in our case of the Russell here for the long, we breached our volatility box iron line, looking for an edge signal confirmation. Never got that on the 1 minute chart prior to going outside of our volatility box with price action going outside of the clouds right here. And once that happened, that was our sign to then switch over to our aggressive box, where if I switch over to the aggressive box here, you'll notice no other trades for the rest of the day. So that was really the market activity in the S&P, the Nasdaq, the Dow, and the Russell. The S&P and the Dow were winners. The Russell, no trade, and then the Nasdaq was the loser for today. The last thing that I'll call out, which I know a lot of members observed as well, but it was really the tick stopped plotting after 8:31 Pacific. I know a few of you emailed us about this. This is, I think, a glitch in ThinkOrSwim side, or on TD side, excuse me. This is already reported as a bug, but the reason why you'll notice the cumulative tick here ended up stopping to populate right around that 8:31 was because the actual tick value stopped populating as of 8:31, right? So you come in here, we're on a 1 minute chart. You'll notice the last time we had the ticks populate was 8:31. The actual value up here, the price value was updating, but the charts were not. And so we called TD. They noticed this as a glitch as well. It's reported as a bug, and I hope that they can square this away before tomorrow. But that's still a little bit of an update there for those that did observe that the tick stopped to populate. All right, hope this recap helps. Take care, everyone. Good luck trading the rest of this week, and we'll see you in the next update.